guys, this is going to be the tutorial that's going to show you how to make these Glover stitch beanies. In this tutorial, I'm going to do my best to show you how to make the sizes from baby, which is about 6 months, to a year and a half or so. It's acrylic yarn, so it will stretch. From toddler to child, which is this size here that I made for my daughter Lily. And also for teen to adult, which is this size. And you can color them however you like. I made the last row of increases on the adult size a different color, just to kind of, you know, enclose the color of the Glover stitch, I should say. And this one I just went ahead and did all the top increases with one color, and then when I started my Glover stitch I switched. But you can make the whole hat in the same color if you want. The flower I have on here is called the flat rose flower. It's a tutorial of mine from a while back. I'll go ahead and put the link in the description box below if you're interested in making one of those. Also, I put ear flaps and braids on her hat because she likes that kind of thing. And I'm not going to show this also in the tutorial, but I'll have the link down below for the tutorial where it's the bear beanie. And in there, I go in detail on how to show how to make the ear flaps and how to make the braids. So I'll have that link in the description box below. So to make one of these hats, all you're going to need is one color of worsted weight yarn, or possibly two if you want to have two different colors. These are the same colors I used for my daughter Lily's hat. And it's just regular size 4-ply worsted weight yarn for the US and 10-ply for Australia. You're also going to need a 5mm hook or a size H hook for the US. And that's it. I added a button on this one, but it's just for style. You don't actually use it for anything else. So you can decorate your hat with flowers or whatever you like. But in this tutorial, I'm just going to show you the basic beanie and the different sizes. So go ahead and grab that stuff and let's get started. Quick note, I forgot to mention, the multiples of this stitch is 2. So if you want to adjust it in different sizes, if it's you crochet tighter than I do, and you want to add more stitches or whatnot, just know that the ending stitch that you end in has to be an even number. So multiples of 2. Okay, this for the purposes of this tutorial, I'm just going to be doing a demo of this. This yarn is thicker so that you can see the stitches a little better. To begin, you want to chain 3. And working in this first chain, you want to work 11 double crochets into this first chain. This chain 2 above the original chain here will count as a double crochet. So when you add your 11 double crochets plus your chain 2 at the beginning, you'll have 12 stitches. And I do like to work over my my tail. So at the end, if I end up with a bit of a hole, a wider hole, I can just pull, because I worked over my stitches, I can just pull to tighten that hole. But I don't want to do that now because I'm actually needing it. So continue to put 11 double crochets in this beginning chain here, and I'll see you back here in a moment. Okay, when you get to the end of your row and you have your chain 2 and your 11 double crochets, 12 stitches total, you want to go ahead and slip stitch in the top of this chain 2. I'm just going to do this over my chain here. So for round 1, we're going to chain 2. And then you want to double crochet into the same stitch. The same stitch where you just slip stitched in and chain 2. Go back into that same stitch and do a double crochet. Now for each stitch all the way around, you're going to want to work 2 double crochets in that same stitch. We're going to be going from 12 stitches to 24 this round. We're doubling our stitches. So continue to put 2 double crochets in each stitch around, and I'll see you when you get to the end. Okay, when you get to the end of the round, you want to find your beginning chain 2, 1 and 2, and in this top of the chain 2 you want to slip stitch. Now for round 2 you want to chain 2, which will count as our double crochet, and then in the next stitch you want to put 2 double crochets worked in the same stitch. This is our first increase. Now the next stitch you only want to put 1 double crochet, and then in the next stitch you want to put 2 double crochets, and you're going to be repeating this for the entire round. You're going to be putting 1 double crochet in the next stitch and then 2 double crochets worked in the next stitch. Continue this pattern all the way around, and at the end of this round you should have 36 stitches. Okay, at the end of round 3, at the end of round 2, you want to find the top of your chain 2 again, 1, 2, and slip stitch in the top of the chain 2 to end the round. Now if you're making baby size, you're done increasing and you can move fast forward through the video till you get to the stitch portion of this tutorial. Now for the rest of the sizes, stay with me. So for round 3, we're going to chain 2, and you want to put a double crochet in the next stitch as well. Now the next stitch is where we want to put our increase. So put 2 double crochets in the next stitch. And then now in the next 2 stitches we're going to be putting 1 double crochet, and then we'll do our increase again by putting 2 double crochets in the next stitch. So you can see here our beginning chain 2 counted as our first double crochet. So we did 1 double crochet, 1 double crochet, and then an increase of 2 double crochets in the same stitch. Then we repeated the pattern again, 1 double crochet, 1 double crochet, and then our increase of 2 double crochets in the same stitch. And you'll repeat that again, 1 double crochet, 1 double crochet, 2 double crochets in the next stitch. You repeat that pattern all the way around till you get to the beginning, and you should have 48 stitches. Okay, at the end of row 3, make sure you count your stitches and that you have 48 stitches. Find the top 2, chain, and slip stitch in the top of the chain 2. If you're making size toddler to child, then go ahead and move to the stitch portion of this video. Now for adults, here I changed colors. So if you wanted to make one like this is the last row of increasing. Or if you want to if you're making one like this, just keep going one more round if you're going for all one color. So what you want to do is chain 2, and then you want to double crochet in the next 2 stitches. So that's 1, 2. The chain 2 counts as our first double crochet, so you should have 3 double crochets now worked in each stitch. Now we'll do our increase of 2 double crochets worked in the same stitch. And then we'll repeat our pattern again by putting 1 double crochet worked in the next 3 stitches. Oop, got caught on my yarn here. 1 in the next 3 stitches, and then we'll do our increase of 2 double crochets worked in the same stitch, and you'll continue that pattern for the rest of the round, putting 1 double crochet in the next 3 stitches and then 2 double crochets in the same stitch. And when you get to the end of your round, you should have 60 stitches. Okay, when you get to the end of your round, make sure that you count your stitches and that you have 60 stitches. Find the top 2 of your beginning chain 2 and slip stitch in the top of it. Now we've made it to the stitch portion of our tutorial. Now this is the fun part. Okay, to begin the stitch, you want to start by chaining 1, And then in the very next stitch, you want to go into the back loop only. There's a front loop of a stitch and a back loop of the stitch. Let me get a little closer here for you. Case. There's a front loop of a stitch and a back loop of a stitch. You're going to be going through this back loop. So I'm going to go in and grab only that back loop, and I'm going to pull up a loop. Then you want to go under both loops of the next stitch. But before you do, you want to yarn over 3 loops on your hook, go under both loops of the next stitch, and pull up a loop. Now you have 4 loops on your hook. You want to yarn over and pull through all 4 of these loops. And then important part of the stitch, chain 1. Then you move over to your next stitch. Again, you will go through the back loop only and pull up a loop. 2 loops on your hook. Yarn over, go under both loops of the next stitch and pull up a loop. 4 loops on your hook. Yarn over, pull through all 4 loops and chain 1. And you repeat this for your whole round, going into the back loop only of the first stitch, yarn over, go under both loops of the next. Pull through all 4 loops and chain 1. And you'll want to continue this for the whole round until you get back up to your stitch marker here, and then I'll show you how to end your round. Okay, I just got done with my almost last stitch of the round. I'm 1 stitch before I finish my row. I'm making an adult size hat, so if I count my stitches here, I'm going to end up with 58. So I would need to do 1 more, because each one of these counts as 2 stitches. Every Glover stitch counts as 2 stitches, so you can easily count 2, 4, 6. Depending on what size you're making, you at this point should have short 2 stitches. So basically 1 stitch of the Glover stitch. This is the last stitch of the round, which is right here with the double crochet. This is a slip stitch that we did when we ended our round last round. And this is the chain 1 that we did at the very beginning of this round before we made our first Glover stitch. So what we're going to do is we're going to be using this last stitch to begin our Glover stitch. Glover stitch again takes 2 stitches, so it will begin in this last stitch of the round. And then we're going to skip our slip stitch from last round and our chain 1, and we're going to go right into the first part of this beginning Glover stitch. See this Glover stitch here, 2 stitches. Each Glover stitch is 2 stitches. So we're going to begin our Glover stitch here and end it here in the first part of our first Glover stitch of the round. So if you are not sure where your first Glover stitch began, find your beginning. This was your chain 1. You can even see down here, these are your 2 chains. This is your chain 1 at the very beginning of the round, and then this is your first Glover stitch. So get your marker, and you can tilt it up this way and see 1, 2. These are the 2 stitches of the Glover stitch. So I'm going to mark right under the first part of my Glover stitch. This is where I'll be ending my next stitch. So I'm going to start here in my very last stitch of the round, and I'm going to insert my hook into this last stitch of the round and pull up a loop. And that's all you're going to do in this stitch. Then you're going to yarn over and then find this first part of the Glover stitch, very beginning of the round. Oops, I forgot. You want to go into the back loop only. Almost forgot. So go into the back loop only, pull up a loop, then yarn over, find this first part of the Glover stitch, beginning of our round, pull up a loop, 4 loops on your hook, pull through all 4 loops, and then you'll chain 1 as normal. And now you're going to be working in 1 continuous round. It should always be the same. So the second part of the Glover stitch is here. And then the next part of the Glover stitches here, you're always going to be working at the end of one Glover stitch and then into the beginning of the next. The Glover stitch is going to be worked, this one you can see better, it's gonna go diagonally. It's not going to be running up and down because we're going to be working it this way. So you want to go into the back loop only. This is the stitch that I just went in. You can see there's yarn sticking out of it. So this is the next stitch. We're going to be going into the back loop only. Pull up a loop, yarn over, and then the next stitch is always going to be the easiest to find. And you just go right in under both of them, both loops, pull up a loop. Pull through all 4 loops and chain 1. Now this, where is it? This right here was the first Glover stitch that we did for the round. But you can see that it isn't the first diagonal one. This one will be the first diagonal one. See, we have one here and now we have one here. So this is the one that you're going to be counting row by row by row by row. So you can go ahead and leave your stitch marker where it is because it's already in that stitch. And I'm just going to move it to where it's more in alignment, but it's still in the same stitch. It's just going to help me be able to find it a lot easier. So now you want to go into the very next stitch, and it's going to be easier to find it because the one you just did is always going to be kind of a bigger stitch. Then you're going to have the one that's on top. And this one you'll always go into the back loop only and pull up a loop. Then the easy part is you yarn over, go into this big stitch here, pull up a loop, pull through all 4 loops and chain 1. Then again, you're looking for that next stitch on top, which is always going to be your very next stitch. Once you do this a few times, you'll learn to recognize it. Going through the back loop only first, yarn over, go under the loops of the next stitch, pull through all 4 loops and chain 1. Again, back loop only, pull up a loop, yarn over, find the next stitch here, go under both loops, 4 loops on the hook, pull through all 4 loops and chain 1. Again, next stitch, back loop only, pull up a loop, yarn over, go under both loops, pull through all 4 loops. And when you get back up here to your marker, it's going to be the same. You're just not even going to even realize the marker's here. You're just going to be working on one continuous round. And you want to continue to do this until from where your marker is, if it's here, then you're going to be counting diagonally. So your first stitch that you mark will be, let's say it's this one, then you're going to want to count 1, 2, 3, 4 like this, diagonally, all the way up the round. And if you have your stitch marker here, means that this next one on the side, the previous one to your stitch marker, will always be 1 stitch less. So make sure that when you count all your stitches here and you end up with 12 rows, that you back up and make sure 1 stitch previous that you have 12 stitches in this row as well. And when you do, you know that you're done. You're going to be doing this Glover stitch for a total of 12 rounds. If you're making a baby size, I recommend reducing it and only doing like 10 rounds and see if that's good enough, because the baby size is never as long as an adult size. You usually have to back it up a couple. So I would say do 10 rows for a baby, but all other sizes I would do 12 rounds total of Glover stitch. Okay, for the purposes of this tutorial, I'm going to show you, once you get all of your rounds completed of your Glover stitch, how you get going on your next, how you get going on your brim. So once you have your 12 rounds or 10 rounds for a baby hat, what you want to do is, this is my diagonal row here where my stitch is, and I'm 1 before it. So this is my first stitch that I need to start in. And of course I've done my Glover stitch and my chain 1 is part of it, and I'm ready to get started on my next round. So what I did when I was beginning my rim, I changed colors. And to do that, I just went ahead and slip stitched in the next stitch. And then I just grabbed my next color. Generally, I guess I can use this stuff. I got my next color and can just fold a piece of the tip here in half and grab it, pull it through your loop and tighten up just by pulling your loop down. And now this will be your color. You just drop the other color and then you can get started on your next color. And if you don't want to change colors, you just go ahead and single crochet into the next. But since I changed colors, I'm going to go ahead and go right back into my same stitch that I slip stitched into, and I'm going to put my first single crochet in it. And then in every stitch around, you want to put 1 single crochet. Now when you started your continuation around with your Glover stitch, you lost 1 stitch. So you have been, if you were working with originally 60 stitches here, you have 59 or so now. So what I'm going to do is at the end of the round, depending on how many stitches that you ended with here, we're going to even it out here. So what I want you to do is continue to single crochet in each stitch around until you get to about the last 4 stitches of the round, and then I'll be right back and I'll show you what you need to do. Hey, welcome back. Okay, so I counted my stitches all the way around and I'm up to 56 right here, and my next would be 57, and my next would be 58, and then my final stitch would be 59, which would make me 1 short from having my original increased number of 60. And you need an even number as well. Like I said, you lose 1 stitch when you're doing your Glover stitch. So what you want to do is, I'm going to get to the end of my round. That's going to be 57, 58. Now in my 59th stitch, I'm going to go ahead and just put an extra stitch. I'm going to put an increase right here, and that'll give me the 60 stitches that I need to even out my number. Now if you were doing baby size, you started with 38. 38. So you're probably at 37, but I recommend, because it really does tighten up, even though acrylic will stretch and it will loosen up, at the very beginning it really does feel tight if you don't add a few stitches. So baby size, you should have about 38 stitches right now. So I recommend that you go ahead and you do an increase in the last 4 stitches, in the last 3 stitches. Here I put 4 stitches too. In order to increase your stitches up to 40. So if I have my count wrong, then you can correct it, but I'm pretty sure you have to increase in 3 stitches, because you should have 37. This would make it 38, 39, and 40. You should only have to increase 3 times to make your stitch count 40 stitches. Once you have 40 stitches, just go ahead and single crochet in the remaining stitches, unless you've already counted from the end and you're at your last 3 stitches. Then you just do your increases, and then you can start right back into your beginning stitch. Again, we're going to be working in 1 continuous round. Now if you're in toddler, you're going to be doing 2 increases. You started off with 48 stitches and you lost 1, so you have 47. So 47, 48, 49, 50. No, 47, 48, 49, 50, so 4. So for this toddler to child size hat, you're actually going to have to do an increase 4 times. So you're probably at, let's see, 47 stitches, because you lost 1. But you stopped increasing back here when you had 48 stitches. When you started your Glover stitch, you went down to 47. So now we need to get you back up to 50 stitches total for this round. So in order to do that, you need to do an increase of 2 single crochets in the same stitch for 4 stitches, which should give you the 50 stitches that you need. I backed up, I don't know how many stitches at the end here, but you had 47, 48, 49, 50. So I did one too many. 47, then this would be 48, 49, 50. So you only need 3 increases. So once you get those 3 increases that take you from 47, first increase would be 48, second increase would be 49, then the third increase would be 50, which is what you need. So once you have your 50 stitches, then just single crochet in the remaining stitches. Count your stitches, make sure you have 50, and then you can go into the very next stitch to continue. We're going to be working one continuous round after this very first stitch here. So I'm going to go ahead and just, I don't know, slip stitch or not slip stitch. I think I will slip stitch. I didn't say to do that in the pattern, but to bring us up to here, let's go ahead and slip stitch. Okay, so we're going to be working in our very first single crochet of the round, and I'll have to fix my stitch count here. But what we're going to be doing is working front and back post single crochets. I started my very first 2 stitches as back post. So I'm going to come in from behind the post and push it back. And then I'm going to work my first single crochet onto the post of the first stitch. Again, come back from the back and push that stitch to the back. And then you're just going to be working on the stitch itself, pulling it over the stitch instead of the, pulling it over the post instead of the stitch, and then doing the single crochet. And then the next 2 we're going to be doing front post. So we're going to be going in and pushing that post forward and doing a single crochet to the next 2 stitches. And then we're going to be alternating that, doing 2 back post single crochets, and then doing 2 front post single crochets. You want to continue this all the way around till you get back up to the beginning again. Okay, I just wanted to show you when you get to your end here where your increases are, you just want to continue the pattern. Here I did 2 front single crochets and front post single crochets, and this is back post single crochets. So now I'm to my front post single crochets for my next 2 stitches. So you're just going to grab the first post only of that increase, do your front post, and then get in there and grab that second stitch of your increase, and now you have 2 front post single crochets. And it's the same for the next, but you're going to be doing back post just like you did before, and you have an even number, so it should match up just fine. So I'm getting to the end of my round here. So I'm just going to leave the camera on. Okay. So this is my slip stitch that I had that connected my round here. So I'm going to ignore it. You have these 2 back post, these 2 front post. Now to be sure, you can move your stitch marker up to mark this stitch here, which is your first stitch of the round. Now we started off doing two back post, 2 front, no, 2 front post, or is it 2 back post? It's back, front, back. Okay, and this is back. So somehow I unmatched up. Oh yeah, because I did increases last time just to show you, and I didn't redo my stitch count. But you should have yours match up. It should be, if you did front stitches here, you should have back stitches here, and it'll match up on this side too. So don't worry, it's just my tutorial thing that messed it up. Okay, so remember, if you did front post single crochets here, you want to start off by doing front post single crochets again. So you'll grab, and I don't know what I grabbed there, need to find that top. I usually like find the stitch, and then you can push back the stitch part and do a single crochet on it. Go into the stitch and come out the next stitch. And that's your second. And then you got your two front, go into one stitch, come out the other, do your front. Go in one stitch, come out the other, do your front. And you're going to continue to do this: two front stitch, two back stitch, post single crochets for 4 rounds more. So we already did one. We're starting our first of the 4 rounds I'm talking about. You want to do 4 rounds more. So you did one, and now you need to do 4 more rounds, the one you just started, and then 3 more, and you'll have a look like this. 1, 2, 3, 4, and then these are the 4 rounds that you're doing of your front and back post, and then your round here was your single crochet. But when you did the front post onto it, it made it look like the single crochet row was front post, because you basically turned it into it. So you only need to do 4 rows of the front and back post single crochet to give yourself 5 rounds of looking front and back post single crochets. And then you can add a button here if you want, or you can add your ear flaps and all that stuff. And I'll put all the links to the tutorials down below so that you can find them. And if you liked this tutorial, please don't forget to like and share. It really helps my channel out a lot for you to support me in that way. Also, if you're a first-time watcher or you haven't had a chance to subscribe yet, please take a moment to do that. I just want to thank you guys so much for all you guys who watch my videos all the time and like and share and give your support on Facebook and everything. I really appreciate you guys. So thank you all so much for watching.